think we'll get started. My name is Jeff Cota. I'm the managing editor of American Farriers Journal. Welcome and thank you for coming. We're going to go over a few points on writing about your hoof care work. They're basic pointers. Hopefully they'll be beneficial to you. Let's start out with a question. How many of you have had clients who assume that what you do is easy and they could do it? Yeah, that's what I thought. I'll be honest with you. When I interviewed for this job about 3-4 years ago, I had a conversation with my wife. I said, if I get this job, how am I going to stay busy? It can't be that much to write about with equine foot, right? No, that's wrong. No, wrong. There's an old saying about walking a mile in a man's shoe, or someone's shoes. And some of you know this, but when we hire a new writer or editor, we send them out for a week of horse shoeing school. Now, a week is a blip on the radar, but what it does is it gives us a taste. And the biggest takeaway is that we learn that what you do, you make it look extremely easy. One of the hardest physical things I've ever done in my life was try to pull a shoe. It was not easy. And I think if you were to put one of your clients underneath the horse to pull a shoe, they'll figure it out too. So along those same lines, 50s or 60s, I forget when, Walter Winchell, he's a famous columnist, he asked Red Smith. Red Smith is a prominent sports writer. He asked Red Smith, it really isn't that difficult to put out a daily sports column, is it? And his best deadpan, Red Smith says, no, you simply just sit down at a typewriter, open your veins and bleed. Now, while that might sound a little exaggerated, there is a sort of mental gymnastics that go along with writing. And so one of those things that we hear from some farriers who would like to write about hoof care, and so what's the easiest ways to go about doing that? Well, it's not easy, but we can make things a little easier for you. So it doesn't really matter whether you're a beginning writer or Stephen King. One of the biggest obstacles you're going to have about writing is distractions. And trying to eliminate those is a little easier said than done. You already have a number of built-in excuses not to write because you already have full-time jobs. You're shoeing horses, you're tired, you have families, and so one of the things you need to do is find a routine that works best for you. And you got to find a time and a place that's quiet and limits interruptions. One of the things that I have to do is I have to wait until my son goes to bed, because every 5 seconds, daddy, 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 you got to find that moment. So you got to find that time and routine. Turn off the TV. Do not have the TV going on. Do not have a radio going on. I learned early not to be watching the TV. What I didn't learn early enough was if someone else is in the room with you, that they have the TV on. Doesn't matter what's on. It could be the most boring show. It could be the sappiest thing you've ever seen in your life, and you don't care about it. It's still going to hook you. I made a mistake once. I was writing. My wife turned on the TV. She's watching When Calls the Heart on Hallmark Channel, one of the sappiest shows you'll ever see on TV. I don't know when it happened. I don't know how it happened. But at some point, I realized that I'm sitting there watching When Calls the Heart instead of writing. And so it doesn't really matter what it is that you're watching. It's going to catch you. The easiest thing in the world to do when you're writing is surf the internet. You already have the computer up. So when you hit that little bump in the road, the little icon's over here in the corner. And it's funny how the mouse just sort of gravitates toward that. You hit that, and then before you know it, you're scrolling through Farrier to Farrier Q&A or barefoot booted out of the Barefooters page. Don't do it. It's a time suck. By the time you realize it, the whole night's gonna be gone and you haven't accomplished anything. So avoid the weapons of mass distraction. You need to pick a topic. How do you pick a topic? It can be more difficult than it seems. You can go through a number of them. It seems like a great idea, but once you get into it, not so much. So the best way to find a topic is to ask yourself 3 questions. What are you most knowledgeable about? Could be from your own experiences. It could be from what you've studied. Find out what it is that you're most knowledgeable about. What are your interests? What are you passionate about? And then find out, what do readers want to read about? What's the topic that is in demand? And then once you get those answers, which of those answers overlap? That's your topic that you want to write about. By following that formula, you'll find that you are much more confident about it, and the material you write about is going to have greater authority. And it's going to show in your writing. One of the better, I'm going to pick on Steve here because he's sitting right there. One of the best stories that we ran last year was a saddle fitting article. We knew about Steve's expertise with saddle fitting. We knew he's into polo, and he's a farrier. And it was one of the best rated articles of the year, and won an award for it. Next thing you want to do once you find that topic is narrow your focus. Why do you want to narrow the topic? Because pretty much everything in horseshoeing is a big umbrella. Laminitis is a huge umbrella topic. You can't possibly cover everything in a general sense with laminitis in a 2,300 word article. Forging is another good example. So let's take a look at forging. You can narrow down forging in any number of ways. You can talk about mechanics at the anvil. You can talk about using steel. You can talk about aluminum. Traction, toe bends, shoes. So we're going to stick with shoes. But shoes is still too big. So you want to narrow that down. So let's just narrow it down to heels. Well, heels is still too big because you have just heel checks. You can do the Bob Marshall heel. You can do trailers. There's all kinds of different ways that you can narrow this down. So even under all those, you can still write a 2,300 word article on just one of those heel topics. So most of you have seen thousands upon thousands of feet in the course of your work, and you have accumulated this institutional knowledge. I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to want to hear. Don't rely on it. It's great for a foundation, okay? But once you have that, you need to create, you need to start researching it and confirm it or reject it, okay? By virtue of you being here, you're demonstrating a desire for knowledge. You're taking the opportunity to learn new ideas or reinforcing existing ones to improve your earnings, not to mention your educational development. You're exposing yourself to innovation and gaining experience, which in turn satisfies your curiosity and leads to growth. You can achieve all this by researching. When you have a theory or belief, don't just take it for granted that what you know is factual. Confirm it, reject it, challenge it. So how do you do that? Read. Get your hands on anything you can, research journals, textbooks, magazines, blogs, podcasts. And for all you guys, it's part of the job. As far as it's part of your it's part of the educational experience for you, so it's tax deductible. You can you can roll it right back into your business. Another way you can do it is by experimenting. Mike Savaldi has more refrigerators than I know anybody ever has, and they're all filled with cadaver feet. He tears them apart, checks them out, and learns. This was taken at a clinic in Virginia, and what he does is he passes out these cadaver feet, and he has everybody figure out, just on the external marks, what they believe the pathologies are in this foot. Has them write it down. And then the fun begins. They start ripping the feet apart, dissecting them. And then they compare what they thought they saw and what actually is going on in the foot. That's how you learn. That's how you figure out what's going on. And I know of a few guys who get groups together Friday nights, drink beer, and dissect feet. It's a great way to learn. You get a lot of guys together sharing ideas. If you can't find a group, ask around. Go to clinics, dissection clinics. When you're finished researching, it's time to write. One of the things that I highly suggest is creating an outline. It'll help organize your thoughts and keep you on track. It's easy to go down little bunny trails. The outline will keep you focused and going down the straight and narrow. This will include an introduction, which sets up the information that's going to be coming for the reader. If you're writing about any number of things, it's a good place to briefly set up why it's important to the reader. You want to transition onto your first main idea or point, which you should support with details. You might have 3 supporting details, you might have 5, you might have 8. It all depends on the complexity of the topic that you're addressing. Be sure to include plenty of them in depth. Try to avoid generalities and vagaries. Specifics are important. Don't assume your reader knows what you know. Your audience is wide, okay, depending on what you're writing for. But it could be a horse owner, it could be a beginning farrier, it could be a veteran farrier. Know your audience, write for them. Don't assume that everybody knows what you know. You're going to continue with that format by your next idea or next point, and then you're going to support that. All these are going to continue until you no longer have information that you want to share. And then you're going to have a conclusion. The conclusion is going to briefly summarize and reinforce the thrust of your article. When you begin writing, be sure to keep your materials, your source materials, within arm's reach. You don't want to be stopping, looking for things. It's just like when you're forging. You don't want to be taking the shoe out of the forge, getting it to the anvil, and say, "Oh, I forgot my 4-punch." And that kind of goes into the next topic here. Avoid starting and stopping when you're writing. Just let it flow. This gets your thoughts and ideas on the page and establishes a rhythm. It's one of the things that I struggle with most. After I write a sentence or a paragraph, one of the first things that I have this urge to do is go back, read the paragraph, and then rewrite it. It's not the time. That's interrupting the flow and you're wasting time. You want to get that flow from your brain onto the page. Once you get it on the page, it just keeps going. So what you want to do once you've written it is set it aside. That'll give you a break. It'll give you a mental break. It'll maintain its freshness, so when the next time you pick it up, you're going to reread and you're going to rewrite. That's very important, because if you just go from the point of writing right back into reading it, you're going to be blind to a lot of the problems that you're going to have in that article. Then you're going to do it again. You're going to set it aside. It doesn't have to be very long. It could be a half hour, it could be a couple hours. If you can, sleep on it. That'll give it enough time to recharge. And you want to keep doing that until you no longer find mistakes. You want to keep repeating that. Most writers I know find something wrong with their work every single time. Doesn't matter. Every issue that comes out of the AFJ, I find something that I wish I could have done differently. When you're writing the article, all right, it's time to submit your work. When you do, include a headline and a subhead. What that'll help you to do is, just like the introduction, it'll help you keep on track. If you read through the article, and then you go back up and you read the headline, and the headline doesn't correlate to what you wrote, you might want to consider refocusing the article. Unless the editor says otherwise or instructs otherwise, provide photos to help illustrate the article. You're gonna get criticism. Don't take it personal. It's not meant to be personal. It's meant to help you. It's meant to help the article. It's meant to help the reader. There are some parallels between writing and horseshoeing. Horseshoeing, the more horses you shoe, the better you get at it. Same thing in writing. I have boxes upon boxes of clips of things that I've written over the course of my career. I have one box that's just filled with clips from when I was in college. The stuff I wrote in college stinks, okay? You don't know when you're writing that it stinks, all right? You'll find that out later on with experience. So the editor's job is to correct the mistakes. And they could be grammatical, they could be spelling. You know, those sorts of things most editors aren't gonna have you do, but it's important to go back and reread the edited version so that you can grow as a writer if that's what you want to do. One of the things that we do at AFJ is we have an advisory board. And the advisory board is a group of equine vets and veteran farriers. Most of the farriers on this group have at least 20 years of experience, usually more. And we give those articles to the advisory board, some of the members of the advisory board. And they're not there to change the perspective of the article. They're there to give pointers. They might know something that you don't know about. It could be a research that you're not aware of. It could be any number of things. It's meant to help the article. It's meant to help you. So if you get any sort of criticism, please don't take it personally. Can't know it all. So I hope this was helpful to you. Where are we? We got about a minute. Do we have any questions?